This is the WHTC Morning News with Gary Stevens and Peg McNichol on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
Welcome back to the WHTC Morning News for this Tuesday, January 11th. Tuesday mornings, we catch up with what is going on in Washington with one of the two men who represent the Lakeshore in the U.S. House. He is U.S. House Representative Fred Upton. He joins us via the Zoom connection this morning. Fred, good morning. And since it's our first chat in 2022, Happy New Year.
Same to you. Same to you.
It's been a while and a lot of things have gone on. I need to ask you right off the bat. 2022, will we be running for reelection?
Well, that's a really good question, but probably the answer has to wait for another day. So we're evaluating a bunch of different things, been encouraged, but we've not made a decision yet in terms of what our political plans are going to be.
How much of a factor is the possible Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission's decision to shrink by one seat the Michigan Commission congressional delegation? It's shrunk because of the census, but the decision is to merge the 2nd and the 6th districts together into one. And Bill Heisiger has already said he's running for a 7th term.
Well, he has, and we had a call yesterday. It appears as though there are going to be some court challenges to this map, and no one likes to run against a fellow incumbent, whether they're of the same party or not. And we'll see what happens when the dust clears. But it's not for certain that the districts are going to stay this way, not only in the congressional races, but also the state and Senate House seats too.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether or not that's going to be a factor, Fred, in your decision-making process.
Well, we'll figure it out. We'll keep you posted.
Political climate in Washington. How much of a factor is that in how you are evaluating things right now?
Well, that's a factor as well. I've been always bipartisan. I've got a role as the vice chair of the Bipartisan Problem Solvers Caucus. It's a pretty toxic place here in Washington where I am now. We had votes last night, votes again the rest of the week. And, at some point you say it's, is this going to improve or not? I'd like to think that I've been part of the process to make it a better place, but the clock ticks. So we'll just see.
I'm not certain if you saw this. I did not. I only saw a little tweet mentioning this. CBS's 60 Minutes had a feature on trying to deal with the political partisanship and maybe some solutions along the lines. Of course, you've been part of the Problem Solvers Caucus, which is a factor, perhaps, in maybe easing political tensions. But in your mind, what really do we need to maybe get rid of some of the partisanship that we have seen really intensify over the last decade?
Well, I did not see the CBS report. I know I testified last year, 2021. There's a select committee that's been established to see what we can do to make this place work a little bit better. I encourage bipartisanship. I talked about 21st Century Cures and the successful effort that I led when I was chair of the Energy and Commerce Committee to move a major piece of legislation that frankly really helped deliver an approved vaccine for COVID, as well as a whole number of other illnesses that we need a solution for. They took some of our suggestions. Their report's not done yet, but we need, we have a divided country. We have a divided government. And the only way, I'm sort of the Reagan school. I worked at the Reagan White House a lot of years ago. Here was a very successful Republican president dealing with a Democratic Congress, and he got things done. And tragically, right now, in a 50-50 Senate, very close margin, I think Speaker Pelosi has a 3-vote margin in the House. Things are very partisan, very political, and we're not getting a lot of things done. And that's frustrating, not only to us colleagues that came to Washington with a purpose to make a difference and take good ideas on both sides of the aisle, but certainly it is, and I hear that all the time from people back at home.
Fred Upton, let me touch upon a couple of things that will be on the docket for Congress as it resumes this session this month. something you've been involved with in trying to deal with farm labor shortages. It's something that's been on your plate for quite a while, and you got some work to do on this.
Well, we passed a bill in the House that was bipartisan last year as part of the Problem Solvers Caucus. Actually, we passed it in two Congresses. Senate didn't get it done. Former President Trump said, Congress, the immigration process is broken. We all know that. Send me a bill. And we didn't. We did a bipartisan bill in the House, particularly on farm labor. We thought that might be an easier one to solve. And it is a real issue. As I talked to my farmers, even this last week, it popped up as an issue that they're very concerned about as they begin to think about the crops that they're going to put in the field. We've got labor shortages everywhere that you can find. I mean, from snowplow drivers to school bus drivers to restaurant and hotel workers. I mean, you can't find a profession out there that isn't looking for people. And on the ag side, that farm labor issue is a major importance of who's going to be there. We don't need people on days like today when it's so cold, but come at least in our district with asparagus in April through apples in the fall, we need a talented group of folks willing to go into the field and pick those crops to get them to market.
Is everything being gummed up right now because of Buildback Better, because the Senate's having issues with that? Or do you see perhaps that we're going to get some things done in 2022 in an election year?
Well, I sure hope the Buildback Better plan is dead. For a long time, they tried to connect it. Those that were for it tried to connect it to the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which passed 69-30 in the Senate last summer. And it took us a while, but finally we split it off. We were able to get it done. There is still maybe a heartbeat with Buildback Better, but I was, as one that's been opposed to Buildback Better from the start, massive new social spending. And the initial plan, of course, was to undo the Trump tax cuts that were enacted back in 2017 that was given the promotion that promoted our economy in a major way. But I was heartened that there really have been no discussions with Senator Manchin, Democrat from West Virginia, over the last couple of weeks, which tells me that ultimately the towel's going to get thrown in. We don't need this right now in a lot of different ways. We know that once you start that social spending, it never goes away. We have this thing called the deficit, and it'll be very tough, I think, to get elements of that bill through the Congress at this point, particularly now that 2022 has started. And Senator Schumer, of course, made promise after promise. Oh, it's going to be up this week. It's going to be next week. We're going to have votes. They don't have the votes to pass it. So let's move on.
One final thing, and I do want to get your comments on this. A story we got from overnight. Congressional Budget Office estimates the federal budget deficit $377 billion in the first quarter of fiscal 2022. Wow. Almost $200 billion less than the deficit during the same period last year, slightly more than right before the coronavirus pandemic. Good news, bad news, or, well, it's just news?
Well, we need a balanced budget. Ultimately, we know that it's going to take some time to get there. The COVID packages, the reason that there's a difference from last year is that the COVID packages that passed both under Trump and Biden were not paid for. And that's one of the reasons why, as problem solvers, we work to pay for the bipartisan infrastructure bill that President Biden did sign into law back in November. However, this deficit is going to be a major issue. For the last couple of years, we've not passed a budget, even though the Democrats have run things. We've not passed a budget in the House or the Senate, really. We need to get on a glide path that ultimately gets us to a balanced budget down at the end of the day, down at the end of the road.
He is Congressman Fred Upton. He joins us Tuesday mornings, talk about things going on in Washington. Fred, as always, thank you very much for your time. Hopefully safe trips back from Washington for you. And if all goes well, let's do this again next Tuesday morning.
Look forward to doing it.
Thank you very much, Fred Upton, on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.